Hey, welcome back to more Hytale. And once again, back to building the castle Sloc Gorm. It's me, Hero of the Heart, or Gecko Comics. I was going to continue where I was yesterday, um, but then I didn't even get done with my intro before OBS just shut itself again. And then the rest of the day just kind of, oh well. So my starting position is a little different, but oh well. Nothing missed, nothing lost of value. We'll just go right into, let's see. Okay, so we've got a tower here. Yeah, this massive section here is all going to be like one big roof, covering everything. There may even be a sort of fifth floor, perhaps, that you could access. Possibly from the battlements and crenellations and everything. Maybe, maybe not. For now, though, we're not going to worry about the wall crenellations just yet because we need to handle the tower crenellations. And yeah, let's just get on to that. So for the tower, in the past, I always had the towers just kind of open air. You know, nothing above them except for like, you know, the castle flag and everything. And well, that's great and all. Again, that always brings up the concern of, you know, it's open to the sky, it's open to being rained on. The rain would come through, go down the steps, erode all the stone that probably isn't even, you know, weatherproofed, get all over, you know, the wooden interior, rot it all away. And okay, maybe there could be some magic that, you know, protects against that. But, you know, once again, I don't want to fall into that trope of rely on magic for literally everything. Because, you know, especially in, you know, this setting where I'm taking the whole magic system as being like, it's understood. You know, there are things that could be not very easily explained or more, you know, loosely spiritual in nature. But for everyday interactions, for things that people understand, you know, like, just take the potions for example, you know, the strongest healing potion that is safe to consume, it's literally just water with a bunch of red energy in it. And it's only red because of, well, it's force energy. Force energy is just, you know, the usual ambient universal energy. I mean, you could say it's being copied from, not necessarily copied from Star Wars, because Star Wars was forced to tweak their whole force concept from being like an actual ambient energy or whatever to we have to denounce anything and everything relating to mythology. So we can't have the Buddhist influence or anything like that. No, that's cringe and weird, and the church doesn't like it, and the corporations don't like it. So they have some sort of like, you know, weird sci-fi biology thing because God forbid Star Wars be what it was actually supposed to be, a you know, it's a fantasy story in a, you know, sci-fi space world. And it doesn't even matter because blending of sci-fi and, you know, fantasy, you know, both genres, the point isn't, oh, we have magic, oh, we have technology. It's about what the people do and how they interact. That's what makes it interesting. What choices are people supposed to make, and how are those choices guided? What choices do they make in the situations they have to resolve? And that's of course kind of why just modern Star Wars is, it's uninteresting and weird because it's not about people making difficult choices. It's about corporates wanting to, really big corporations wanting to simply resell nostalgia and then browbeat us about some, whatever they say we're supposed to believe in, for better or worse, which is, you know. So, yeah, you could also say that, I may be taking a bit from like how Zelda handles the Force. Well, first of all, Zelda copies, not word for word, but the Force in Zelda with Light Force and Life Force, as they kind of refer to it here and there somewhat over in Zelda. Legend of Zelda. First of all, you know, they are inspired by Force as it's used in Star Wars. They also have other mediums that they take inspiration from, but yeah, they pull it from Star Wars. So if I have a Force system that uses similar terminology, um, then if that's a bad thing when I do it, then that's a bad thing when they do it, because we're both equally original. I'd say, let sleeping dogs lie there, because everything's inspired by something that came before, and somewhere along those lines you'll find it either in real world mythology from well before copyright laws were even really a consideration, or just real world in general. So, not to mention, my Force system is actually developed and, you know, used actively in the world. And granted, I've not had enough, I've restarted too many times to really, keep a steady explanation available on how Force works for my world setting. But I go to much greater lengths of actually having it be a system rather than simply an ethereal force that gets name dropped in a handful of spin-off games and then never touched again. I mean, it probably still gets touched and used, but it's a lot more quiet in the background in Zelda games than I do here. Here, I have, like, yeah, I kind of have to explain how it works because I'm actively using it as a gameplay mechanic, whereas with Zelda games, the only times you ever actually interact with anything labeled with Force is usually, again, games that are considered spin-offs. Like Phantom Hourglass, you have, Sand of Hours, which is crunched up Force gems, or even just Force gems that you use as puzzle items. And, there's a big monster thing that, steals people's life force. But, like, for actual gameplay utility, yeah, the only thing any of that even really means is you have an hourglass and it has magic sand that stops, one particular dungeon from draining your vitality. And if it runs out, then it'll start draining your vitality, and albeit kind of slowly because, I mean, yeah, it's enough that it will eventually kill you if you don't keep your hearts replenished. But your bigger concern, honestly, is just like, the things that hit you and kill you. Anyway, and then for like, I think the most on the nose actual use of a Force system at all would probably be Force Swords Adventures, where once again you have Force gems. And the whole point there is you're collecting Force gems to power up the Force Sword so that it can, it has the power to repel evil and destroy the barriers of darkness and everything. And aside from that, they really don't use the Force concept in its name all that much else. I mean, maybe Minish Captor's stuff about Vati stealing the Light Force from Zelda, but again, there it's a narrative plot device that we, the player, don't even directly interact with. at most, it's the final rush in the last dungeon right before the final boss where we have to race against time, um, beat all the enemies and reach Vati before he can complete the ritual. That's it. No visible meter, no anything. So yeah, back to the castle. So there's definitely going to be things about it that may be a little bit stretching realism, but the matter worth mentioning is like the castle. I want it to be at least seemingly plausible. It has to be able to hold its own to some merit, because even though there is abundant infinite energy around the world, that infinity isn't it's not a vast boundless ocean. It is simply, an ambient energy that can vary in intensity, and effectively it's a resource that, again, you can near infinitely tap into, but also it can exhaust, and then also can be grown. So, it's at this point I'm making more of an explanation for you to justify why I'm considering adding a roof. But anyways, so which actually I should work on. Right, and I should also actually make sure that the roof is I did not even see the block I was. Alright. So okay. So I'm going to want to have an actual roof here, first of all, to stop rain from potentially coming in and causing structural damage. Yes, hypothetically, the castle could just ward itself against all of that, but at the same time, if it's a cost that, if that can be made into a, not even a cost on the castle, then that's more energy production the castle can go into, reducing the overhead. It's, that sort of line of thinking I'm trying to go with for how the magic system even works. Is, yeah, the castle is a designed, thing here. It's not just, oh, we have some fortress that's magical and enchanted and does weird things. Yes, it can have those sorts of properties, and in fact, this castle is actually somewhat sentient. It has a working relationship with the Earth itself. It's directly, tied to the Earth. That's why a third of it is underground, even if like half of that third, isn't even below the main ground level. Is still buried within the earth. It's bringing in water, surrounded by a casing of earth, like the aqueduct. It's all in the plateau. This is the root of the castle here. The roots where it draws in water, and the castle has veins inside. I will refrain from having the veins actually penetrating the outer walls of the keep, but they pull it in from the base, goes up through the center, and then disperses it throughout the rest of the castle, and it still keeps going up until when I get the roof done once again. The original version of Castle Sloc Gorm had a big, slanted roof that led up to a central tower, and atop that tower was, it was a really big, tall tower too. So atop that tower is the heart of the castle, or maybe even the mind of the castle, because there may also be, other big crystals within. But at the top of the tallest tower at the center of the castle is a massive life force crystal. And I've actually had, some months ago, maybe even, say, at least half a year ago now, on a kind of roleplay story campaign called Apotheosis I have with my friends. When I took them to the castle, took their characters to the castle. Um, Not for the first time. The first time I believe we just kind of stopped by after a mission, and had a little banquet. You know, eat up and celebrate, and also have some other, you know, other story notes happen. Yeah. Second time was when we were having a bunch of character introductions. I believe it was around August of last year we did that. Characters being introduced, they were landing in the land of Sloc Gorm because of Sloc Gorm's relationship to the Apotheosis campaign. Long story short, also a bit of a, like, the entire land being kind of a cognitive world in a sense. More on that later. So, after basically picking up the people who had landed in Sloc Gorm because of a bunch of extra-dimensional bullshit it intercepted, they were taken to the castle, and a couple of them, went to the big live stream pillar thingy here, like, yeah, basically the central pillar here, which is going to have, that's the central gathering point of the blood of the castle that comes through these hallways from the water intake. Gets sanguinated, goes up. So they touched the glass and kind of just tried to, like, sense it, where it's going and everything. And they went on a wild ride where it took them out, they took their senses throughout the castle all the way up to the big gemstone, the big life force crystal at the top. And then, from there they kind of got the sense, like, oh, this is like a living extension of the Earth's will. As in, it's not just the castle is some great magical fortress. It's a power generator, but also it's allowed to be what it is because it exists in harmony with the Earth that it sits upon, as an extension of the Earth, and has, it's a fortified military fortress, but also, yeah, it's got the whole, like, it exists to live in harmony with the Earth and, between Earth and people. It is a man-made, massive man-made construct, but, its main function is, like, it supplies power, but also greatly vitalizes the life energies in the surrounding land. That's why, especially in the Minecraft versions, I'll find a way to make it work here as well. Your most basic healing potion is just natural spring water, because the land itself is so rich in vitality that the water straight up heals you. It's not a super powerful healing, but it's a little bit more than usual. And especially in the original version of the map, but even in the previous one, all the versions of the map in Minecraft, the way you got the higher levels of healing potion, like Red Vial, Crimson, Ruby, was... Wow, they are active out there today. Okay. Sorry, airplanes. Very active these past few days. I have my window open because I like the cool breeze and it helps keep my computer from being super hot. But, so spring water becomes red vial, becomes crimson vial, becomes ruby vial, and there's a fifth tier after that, which is unsafe for consumption. Essentially, it's like the main part of the process for upgrading to those higher levels of healing potion was essentially prayer power, concentrating, your energy and sending it into the water and causing it to become sanguinated because it was in a, it became imparted into a vessel. And I'm still developing the force system. There's namely free forms of force that really are known. It could have other forms, but I've not explored those, and I may not explore those for a long time, because I've still yet to really get my foot in the door proper. So, you've got what's, it's just called force, but you may as well call it pure force, or whatever you want to call it. It's the natural ambient, energy that is everything. And when it interacts with things, it can become light force or life force. And the difference is, light force is when you use your will to gather force energy and create miracles. This is a very ephemeral form of force that typically just reverts back to regular force or even just becomes matter. But if with my recent, Hytale development stuff, that light force energy is now able to be, if temporarily, stored into crystals. Because, yes, when you change the behavior and state of force, it does, change its properties a little bit. It isn't just one universal energy that's unchanging and, it isn't just like, oh, you have, electricity running through your, power lines. It's also, because electricity isn't just one static form. It is electricity, as in what we have that powers the stuff, but we also have electromagnetivity, and many other things, plasmatic forms, all sorts of stuff. At the end of the day, it is still just energy, but it can be expressed in many different forms, and that's how I'm handling force here. So yeah, pure force, for disambiguation, represented with a purple hue or color, but usually invisible, is just the ambient energy of everything. And in that alone, it kind of doesn't really do a whole lot, it just kind of exists. It's in an inert state. It can be used in that state, but a lot of people don't really know how to use it in that state, and that state can be rather limited in its use applications. So, more often than not, simply even exerting your will on force is more than enough to convert it into light force. And light force is, what you're doing with something like this. And it's so flexible and usable that, that's why you're even able to just kind of pick up a branch and something will happen. Well, you have to still put your intention into it. And that's why in the previous maps you had, your third main resource stat wasn't, another energy thing or stamina or anything like that. It was willpower. Because that is your ability to convert force into light force and then use light force. And make things happen with it. And things, willpower wasn't a thing that would be naturally depleted. It was something like your life force that you had to, occasionally try to sustain because other things would try to damage it. And the more your willpower was damaged, the less capable you would be with using light force to do magic. And light force extended to more than simply, casting spells. It goes into everything. That's why, so, when I go into, where's my, let's just game mode A. So, for the Sloc Gorm weapons, that's why when you try to do a, charge a spin attack up, I do need to work on the interaction there, but functionally it's working. So once I release, it uses mana. However, if I don't charge it up all the way, you know, a simple quick spin won't use any mana. And yes, I did, again, take a lot of inspiration from Legend of Zelda. This is why we have a really strong jump attack. That's why I even have this altered attack string where you will do a quick spin at the end. But also, you know, it gives me a way for Light Force to be a everyday part of simply existing within the world. I mean, take it back to, say, like just a, you know, even a regular sword. It doesn't matter what kind of a sword you use. I can find, yeah, there's animations. I need to rework its internal name. So, yeah, even just, you know, this one, you have the same structure of technique. And if you take away your Light Force capacity, again, I need to fix the interaction structure so it's a little less janky, but as you can see, you know, you can't get beyond the first charge tier. And then I have a little bit more mana. Now it's only... Okay, right. It doesn't take much magic energy. I'll look into, you know, properly structuring everything later. But you get the general idea. Light Force exists, not really has the ambient force that's in everything, but, you know, living beings that exist use it to do things. And Life Force is essentially a very condensed form of force energy. It's what gives you the energy to, you know, breathe and move and function normally. That's why it's, you know, the red color, whereas Light Force is gold and, you know, used for creating miracles. Life Force, yeah, is red, a sanguine color. It is essentially a energetic blood, almost, hence blood of the castle. But it's, you know, again, the most dense form of energy that we have with force, as far as is known. And so this castle will often have, like, red colors incorporated into it because of that, because it is, you know, at the end of the day, a beating heart that breathes life into the surrounding environment and provides a ton of power. And while yes, life force is primarily a sustaining, dense form of energy, it can also be used to perform miracles similar to light force, though not one-for-one exact, because the nature and scope of the miracles you perform are much vaster and more intense. And in fact, life force, when misused, is the most dangerous form of force, because it can spiral out of control and kind of become maybe even a bit explosive in some situations. That's the 5th tier of the healing potions. When you go beyond a ruby vial, it becomes, you know, it becomes so concentrated with life force energy that it becomes literally just a bottle of life force energy, barely being contained by the water holding it. And if you consume that, it can be enough to, you know, it can be enough to overload the systems of, you know, the bodily systems of the person who's consuming it. And I've shown in Persona Blast on a rare occasion, you know, SRB2 Persona, I've shown development on that, because in the original Tale of Sunsword map, it was literally just, you know, healing potion so strong it just knocks you over and quote-unquote kills you. In SRB2 Persona, I expanded on it so you get a very short-lived massive power trip, because your life force energy is spiraling, you know, out of control in some big, you know, vortex, and the amount of time you have before you explode is dependent on your maximum hit points. Roughly one turn per 300 hit point capacity for Sonic Robot Super Sona. You're virtually unkillable in that state, but yeah, you will explode very shortly. And yeah, so it's something you have to be careful with. And whereas with Light Force, you kind of only can store it, you know, it's not even really that you store Light Force into a crystal form. It's not something that wants to be stored, but you're able to more so use it to structure and, you know, these crystal foci, you know, the way they're created is like you essentially like just take regular crystals, imbue them with intention, and you're able to even magically condense them into like these orbs with like energy and stuff, elemental power, to almost program them to do things, to perform miraculous functions, or to provide a elemental focus, to provide structure for your intention. Whereas Life Force is actually storable. It's denser, it's more almost tangible, so it's able to be, because it's able to, and even designed to exist inside of vessels. Light Force is, again, meant to be ephemeral and for miracle making. So Life Force, yeah, is meant to exist in physical vessels. You can hold it in water. That should be a given because most life forms have some amount of water in them. But you can also store it in crystalline structures. For the current crystals I have, there's actually a little bit of like metaphysical study involved with it. So like, quartz crystals are kind of like you can kind of do anything with them sort of a thing for the clear quartz. They are like, you know, generally speaking, like amplifiers that can store energy. You can kind of do whatever you want with them, and their characteristics will, you know, mirror that of, you know, what is done with them. So that makes them most suitable for work with Light Force. That's why if I were to take out a Arcanist workbench and, you know, start trying to make crystals, you'll see, you know, two quartz will get free Light Force shards, but say amethyst, you know, you don't get the same you know, efficacy. And likewise, you know, quartz, you know, quartz is like, you know, something you're more trying to do things with, whereas amethyst is more like actually embodying the human condition and has a lot of, you know, healing and protective attributes to it. So that's why it's more suitable for handling Life Force, because it's more, you know, amethyst is more stabilizing than quartz is, although they are still very closely related. Like amethyst is a form of quartz. That subtle difference in characteristics is enough to, you know, make amethyst more ideal for working with Life Force, especially on grander scale, on grander scales that, you know, would require storing it in crystals. And, you know, something also worth noting, you know, in the previous version of the Tale of Sunsword map, and I'll be doing this soon when enough of the castle has been built. Sloc Gorm has not really a fleet, but they do have spacefaring transportation. And I'm gonna figure this out. The Sloc Gorm flagship is a vessel known as a Saffron Star. Saffron as in referring to the color of sapphires, because it's a sword-shaped spaceship high maneuverability, devastating weaponry that is also designed for ramming other vessels. High speed, high maneuverability. It's not very big, like massively dwarfed by this castle. And for a part of Apotheosis, yeah, we have space battle stuff that we've touched on a little bit that we want to get into more later on. Saffron Star is like, I forget all the terms used, but essentially like there are a lot of bigger ships that can deploy smaller ships. Saffron Star can't do that, and in fact, it's like maximum occupancy is maybe 10 to 12 people, and that's including like the free seats you have in the cockpit. So it's a little bit bigger than a typical shuttle. Maybe 2 or 3 times the volume of a shuttle, or maybe even 6 times the volume. But like it's so to give a mathematical like understanding, it's like 30 meters wide, 10 meters tall, and about, I think, 70 to 80 meters long, maybe, or maybe even shorter. Like, but it doesn't have a very high manning occupancy, or even really any. Like, you can't really put a lot of stuff into it because 2/3 of its mass are in the nose, which is a giant sword blade that has a tunnel. So it's structural integrity first. Worry about storage in what's supposed to be the hilt if it were an actual sword, because again, it's a ramming vessel that goes really fast. But reason I'm even bringing that ship up in the first place is because it has a dual power supply of life force crystals, fairly decently big ones. That's from that one. Yeah, like 2 of these guys basically. Like roughly the size of a red crystal each. That's what powers the whole ship. And the ship is, kind of alive in its own sense, even though it doesn't really express any, like, sentience or anything. It still has, it's still powered by, living crystal life. And it still has, like, onboard computers and, systems, and the only... I'm not even... It may even have a personality, I don't know. I haven't really developed that yet. But it's entirely possible. And for some of its things it can do, because it has an actual like stat sheet for the space battle system we have. So its main 2 weapons, aside from ramming with its big sword blade, is it has elemental cannons, and it has laser array. High power laser array that so ships have hull points and armor points. Hull points is basically like the HP, and then armor points is like a second HP bar that are easier to restore, I believe, depending on the vessel. And the only reason it even has armor points to begin with is because like it's a flagship. For its size, if it were a regular ship, especially without its force fields or shielding, it would just be hull points and then probably get mowed down by something. But it has force fields, or a force, it has a force field, energy protection, because it's kind of gonna need that for space battles, especially if it wants to be a serious threat. And depending on how many armor points it has left, its laser power scale is based on that. If it's at maximum armor points, it's going to roast a lot of things and can even cause trouble for, bigger vessels, possibly even like carriers and stuff. Failing that, it can also ram a ship. But its other weapon is its light force array that can cause elemental cannon, artillery attacks. It can, in the test run we did, the Saffron Star basically sent a big ball of fire magic at a vessel that had taken a lot of crew damage, and essentially set that vessel on fire and killed the rest of the crew, turning it into an unmanned vessel. But it also has an ice cannon that can cause serious hull damage, electric cannon that can cause catastrophes. It can cause, it can shoot a, I think it should have a light beam attack. I forget what particular properties that one had. It may have had longer range or something, or yeah, something. And then it had a darkness cannon attack that was really good at shredding enemy vessel armor. Because that's just generally speaking, how a lot of the Sloc Gorm elements interact with things in general. Darkness effect usually reduces enemy defense or outright kills it. And then, the other elements are kind of... You get the picture. It doesn't have a wind cannon, although I probably could make it shoot rocks or something later on. If there's a, purpose for the film. But it doesn't have a wind cannon because, again, it's for space battles. And, yeah, it already is kind of stretching it to have a fire attack, but it'd be, you're sending something that would set a, vessel with a internal atmosphere ablaze. So it's still feasible, especially when you have considerations for how do we turn this into some sort of a heat projectile that then turns into a blaze once it reaches something of an atmosphere. So that much can be excused. A wind cannon cannot be excused because you need an atmosphere, plain and simple. I could make it actually be maybe a vibration cannon, but again, that would be encroaching on what some of the other elemental array things do. Like, if I had it be a vibration thing, what would it do other than cause shockwaves that maybe does something of everything? I don't know. Something I'd have to take up with the guy running it all, and he's very busy with being a teacher and having so little time off. We haven't had a session in weeks. We've had it's been slow going, so anyhow. Yeah, so back to what I'm actually supposed to be doing here. I need to figure out what kind of a design I want for the towers here, and I want something that stops the rain from simply pouring down onto, down into the rest of the castle. Yes, there should be water inside the castle, but rainwater on the exposed structural parts is not going to be good for the castle. It needs to be, either contained in a bath or, accessible for people to drink in a fountain, or it needs to be the actual blood of the castle that is, the energy flow of the castle itself that then gets, sent up and dispersed throughout the land. So I think what I'm going to be going on and doing here, I'm going to go ahead and rethink all of this structuring here on this layer. No, I actually wanted to keep that one there. So, just going to clean all of this up, because it's going to be structured a little differently now that we've reached the top of the tower. I am thinking I want to have a roof, but I don't want it to just be one giant, cone at the top. I think I actually want to... because look at how it's already set up here. I think I could actually go for having a inside shelter that goes outside. would be a way to set it up. I might even have it raised up from the main walking area. So, I'm going to go ahead and have pillars here. And let's see. So what I want to do, I'm going to go ahead and I don't want it to be too cramped. Right. Okay, I do actually want to make space outwards. Actually, yeah, let's just take that. Which way did you go? Doesn't look like it went anywhere. Interesting. Oh wait, no, I don't know what it did. Okay. I'm just gonna take that up so that I can keep it. Because rotations and everything. Uh-oh. Minor, oops. And then just fix it. Okay. Oh, right, over here too. Okay. So, these pillars want to be on the outside now. To an extent. And then we are going to let me see here. So yeah, we're gonna have doorways. I may actually just have to put the cobblestone back in, however it works out. Because I'm contemplating raising up the landing of the stairs inside the tower, just to keep the rain from being able to spill inside. So probably just go like this, and then I can put this in here. And I can go ahead and fix all this later. Yeah, screw it. I'm just gonna fix that later. So I do all this. Right, I need to break all the... Oh. Right. I didn't go this way. Why didn't I go that way? So doing it like this will let me actually have it be... Well, one, I'm preserving the rotation of the actual blocks themselves as best I can. Probably shouldn't be paying too much attention to it, but at the same time, maybe I should. It's complicated. And frankly, I kind of wish that rotating the brick blocks, you know, didn't actually rotate the individual blocks themselves. Just their relationship to one another. Maybe there'll be a setting for that later. Because I like having the ability to do that. I just don't want it to be, you know, always what's happening when I'm rotating structures and stuff. Sometimes I just want, you know, the structures to be positionally rotated, but still line up texture-wise. Alright. Alright, now I go down here, kill that, and we've got all of this, so... Right. So I will have a landing in here. I'm gonna try to aim for having the main... yeah, doorways, walkways, whatever, be, like, you know, facing the inside of the castle, because then you have protection from the outside on, you know, the faces of the tower, you know, the sides of the tower that would be facing enemy forces. Yeah, may as well keep those be shut and protected, to avoid injury of whoever's operating the castle. I do want to actually put this here. I'm not too worried about the pillar individual rotations, or, you know, things like the smooth, you know, stone, because, you know, they are like you have to look very, very closely to see rotational differences on their texturing. It may not even support it, I don't know. Maybe they do. It seems like all the blocks probably support rotation to some extent. It's just, you know, a matter of, does it visually appear rotated? That I'm, you know, most concerned about. And we have, you know, the brick top textures that very clearly show when they've been rotated or not. Yeah, that's, you know, my main concern there. Anyhow, I am rambling a bit though, so... And it would appear I am not fully adhering to the... let's see, yeah, you're, okay, so... Get all these guys in here. And yeah, a large part of it is like, you know, what all is even going to be seen. So now we can just close the loop and be mindful of step height. Okay, so that is clear. I could possibly do that. I think, yeah. Yeah, that should be fine. And I grab the crystal light. And... right. And yeah, this, portion of the tower isn't going to be as thick because it's more just like, basic protection against smaller things. It's not holding anything up other than roof and weathering and stuff, and there's still going to be some structural integrity, but also like, you're gonna need something that can really throw to actually hit it, for as far as like trebuchets go. And okay, yeah, they probably got good distances, but again, like, there's only so much space up here, and if I make this ring too solid, it's going to kind of put pressure below because it's not in line with the rest of the wall, because it's making space for people to be able to actually walk out on the tower itself. Alright, so yeah, we're doing all this like this. Okay. Okay. So now when rain comes down, this will be raised up a bit. I'll make the roof. So now we've got these pillars can actually protrude outwards. And in fact, I think I'm going to do this for them at the pillar bases. I'm gonna think on how I want to work the design. I mean, I could keep how they're already going. Let me see what I can do here, because I do need drainage. Could go with that. We'll see, because I need drainage, I need space. So I'm just gonna, alright, let's focus here. So I need, first of all, I need space. I go like, actually, yeah, if I go like this. Hang on. I go like this. And then I can have the walls jutting out. Honestly, okay, yeah. Honestly, let's just copy this and do it with non-messed up rotations. That way I'm not gonna have to constantly, like, play the rotation game or whatever. No nonsense for me, no siree. Okay, is it all inside? Alt E. Drag it over. Alright, so rotate. Make sure it's all lined up nice. Okay, looking good. Paste, and then... Okay, so now the bricks should be lined up. Since this is the original tower I was working on in the first place, this is where the rotations are originated. It may be just a slight touch finicky in places, like, it'll be fine. Like, yeah. Again, issues that were less prevalent in Minecraft just because Minecraft was a little bit more rigid about how it handled blocks. But that rigidity had its prices, and I much prefer the freedom we've got here at this point. Okay. So... yeah, let me actually just wipe all of... uh-oh. That's fine. So let's just wipe all this off for the time being. Obviously, I'm still going to want to cover the things. I need to have properly designed and laid out meticulations. That much is for sure. I want it to extend over everything around it, just a bit. So, primary focus is that. So, I can go with having something like this. And then you can actually put stuff in like that for draining. Yeah. God, it's so much simpler than what was possible with Minecraft. Ooh. Oh, that feels so good. Okay. Now I just gotta be... let's see, I want that there. Right, and then we've got... that's not gonna line up as neatly here. Because of this. And that still wants to be covered as well. Think about it. Think about it. Might be slightly not working out. Oh well. I'll figure it out. Okay, actually, we do want a little bit of deviance here, because we want something like this. Except... It's gonna be hard to make arrow loops here without... Wait, no, I can... Duh! Why didn't I think of that? Well, I kinda just thought of it now, I suppose. And over here... Yeah, we can do this. Just a touch awkward. But I think it should do. Oh, no, these need to be taller. These need to be taller. Much taller. And they need to be like that, so that they are properly self-supporting. There. Now you're able to actually shoot for these, while still having considerable cover. I should make this a little bit safer. Oh, right. I can do it like that. Alright, and then how does this connect to everything else? That's gonna be a pain point right there for me. So... we do want this, and that's gonna go here, have something there. I don't want people falling through this, but I would like water to run through there, perhaps. So we can cover it like that. And then same deal on this side. Okay, I got that. Ah. Oh yeah. You know what? That's fair enough. Okay. So... let's see, and it wants to connect more like that. So I might want to change how that connects there. And it's being supported. Okay. And so we have something like this, that, and then this. Main issue being how do you make that? Well, Yeah, it's a little bit of a struggle. But I think I can make something work here. If it works, if it works, it works. Slightly awkward. I'd like to have quarter pieces, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Rain goes through, check. Arrows go through. Well, you know how it is right now. Can't shoot through shit with arrows right now. Magic goes through. There. Oh. Why am I getting pinged right now? Okay, it's easy to shoot for these. Why? Because it's projected in front of me. Whereas the bow, I think it's literally spawning it from inside of me. I guess fair enough considering... Huh? That doesn't line up. Okay, oh boy. I'll worry about that later. Oh. Okay, so... Oh, jeez. I'm sure burning my time. Alright, okay, so... Get that there. Ooh. Right. I wonder if I should pull that in a little. I might just. Guess it's not awful, but like, we'll see how it works out. Again, I don't want it to be too cramped, so I think actually here, yeah, pulling this in wouldn't be bad. Nah, no, I'm gonna keep it this way. For better or for worse. Okay, yeah, boy, I sure feel like I made my head just melt. Okay, so I think the basic thing is we've got all this going on. Right, and it's being extended 2 blocks out. Alright. So, get basic structure first, then elaborate upon it. If I keep it all in similar motions to where all I've been, then it shouldn't be too hard for me to handle. That's it. It appears that I do have some detailing concerns. On these sections of the wall. I'll do it like that, call it a job well done. And now, get those in. Yeah, get those supports, and then see, how do we fill that in again? Right, we just used slab. And then here we had these guys. No, not there, there. Let's see, that's where the pillars are, so they get them too. And then the corner pillars had just a slab because I can't force the stairs to be corner stairs currently. I mean, I probably could, but if they don't naturally want to connect that way and there's no piece shaped like that in the menu currently, then I'm simply not going to bother. Okay, so these pieces are like this. I can do that here on the corner too. Actually, a bit like, yeah. Yeah, something like this. Make sure, because yeah, I'm doing that now. it does look a little bit weird having it go diagonal like that, but whatever. Right, here. Yeah. Alright, almost done with this part on making the arrow loops into crenellations. Then we have these stairs. Yeah. Let's get this part over with then. Since it goes this tall. And then basically just connect it best as I can. That's why part of why I was like, you know what? Yeah, just go with the free block thick walls down below because it's easier to keep all the stuff connected when you're handling diagonals that way. But the crenellations, you know, I can't really do the crenellations as being 3 meters thick. That just kind of, you know, goes a little bit beyond the scope of reality, I think. And also, it would just, like, take away a lot of space, too. Okay, and then so we've got this going on here. I want these guys here. I could still have, they wouldn't be like massive arrow loops, but they could be windows. So we'll go ahead and let's make sure all the pillars are up to snuff. I don't need it to be super tall. Okay, now we can work with this. And if I have to shorten that back down, I can. Alright, so let's see, on floors below, how have I messed with it? Not really much at all. Well, I can check, like, way down. Yeah, so yeah, they do interact there, okay. Alright, so back up here. like that. So that goes with that shape. And then up here, go like that for now. I'll probably end up changing that. My idea actually is kind of like, let's see. Main thing I want to go for, honestly, is just kind of having something like this. And maybe I could even, like, open it up a little more. I do also... can't really... How's it looking here? Whatever. Okay, so now we want to think about how the roof's gonna go in, and that also means going over to here, and what kind of a roof do I want? Just think about this for a moment. Dark wood actually might just work out. Yeah, we'll take this. Alright, so that's gonna be... it's gonna be, and I think I like the idea of having, like... well, I don't want it to be too tall. Because if it stands out a little too much, that's gonna be, one, hard to work maintenance on, and two, it's gonna be... yeah, if we go more like, let's see, having it be about that height. Yeah. Okay, and then we can go about it like this. Airplane going over. Oh, yeah, I could also just make these have windows, too. There's still, like, a decent amount of shelter. And again, this is not going to be easy to shoot into, necessarily. Short of, you know, just crushing this portion of the tower, which, yeah. And, yeah, do keep in mind, like, you know, there would actually be, like, powerful force fields as an option for defending the castle and everything like that. anti-destruction and everything, but it still wants to have a solid base foundation. Like it's the concept of like having, you know, for example, like take D&D. It's the concept of like, okay, so we have a spellcaster, like, you know, maybe a cleric or something, but, you know, instead of just being, you know, a squishy wizard who dies in 2 hits, number 845, why don't we have like an actual something that can take punishment and live to tell the tale? That's kind of the design philosophy I'm going with here. Sure, the squishy wizards can come in handy every now and again, but at the end of the day, if you can't stand to take a beating, you know, if you don't have an answer for really high offense threat, then you're gonna end up being a, you know, a smear on the pavement, and we don't want to be a smear on the pavement. Okay, so now I think. Alright, let's get to doing the roof. And then we can call the episode. So, I'm gonna want to have it kind of move into here. Now I want it to be, might actually go for like this. Don't know how this is gonna end up blending though. Right. Not terribly many options either. So how do these handle blending? It was like that. I'm not sure I'll be able to use the sleep ones here, or the shallow ones rather. That's fine. Is this all even? Looks to be. Okay, I'll use these blocks temporarily. I'll probably place something else there. I just need a placing surface. Interesting. They like to continue diagonally if there is already... Okay, okay. That's actually kind of neat. Uh-huh. Alright, and then on this side... Okay. And here's where it starts to get messy, because now it's like... How is this one supposed to go diagonal? Oh, that's a tall one. Not there yet. Right, let's get these underneath for the time being. Getting a little bit cramped. Okay, so if we all place them the same direction, or place them all the same direction, yeah. do that. And then we just have... Yeah, it kind of needs a little bit of, so at least tries, at least is trying. Am I able to make these, play nice with that? Almost. I think it looks better than what I was going with before. Yeah. Alright. Okay. So now I got this going here. Doesn't really work. Yeah, now it kind of just gets confused. So... Right, I can try and do... like this. Nope. Then what I probably do is just go with this plan. And then I can try to have, flat roof. Maybe. What did you do? Oh, you deleted my bricks. That's awesome. Unfortunately, I think that's all I can really do here, unless I go a different route entirely. Right, and that stops you from getting to have diagonals. It's a little bit messy, isn't it? So I guess the end goal here is to just have the structure kind of try to flatten out. So it's probably gonna mean like that might actually work out. Uh-oh. That will not. Yeah. I think that's as clean as I can probably get it, unfortunately. So let's probably just actually just rework this entire section. No. I might actually just have to call it here and think about this. So thanks for watching. This is probably a little extra long. I'll see you guys soon.